If you spend 5 minutes on the internet, you'll notice Gen Z talks about relationships with a massive, highly specific vocabulary for sexuality and boundaries. Ideas that used to be confined to niche subcultures like ethical non-monogamy or relationship anarchy and even polyamory are now standard topics on a first date or a random Tuesday scroll through TikTok. When a demographic is this fluent in the language of sexual fluidity, the natural assumption is that they must be highly sexually active. We see the openness and assume an ongoing increase in physical encounters. But measuring how people talk is a metric of discourse. Saying we talk about it more does not actually mean more sex is happening. The behavioral reality points in the opposite direction. Curious, slightly hushed. Despite dominating the conversation online, Gen Z is experiencing the steepest generational decline in sexual frequency ever recorded by researchers. This chart compares the rate of regular casual encounters among young adults. In 2004, 78% of millennials surveyed at that age reported their friend groups were regularly having one-night stands. Today, only 23% of Gen Z reports the same behavior. Looking deeper into this demographic breakdown, nearly half of Gen Z adults report zero partnered sexual activity in recent surveyed periods. When you zoom out to look at the entire adult population, 22% of all U.S. adults report never having had partnered sex, a figure driven primarily by these younger demographics. Sex frequency is dropping, even as the comfort in discussing it hits an all-time high. This disconnect between digital discourse and physical behavior suggests the mechanics of dating have shifted. To understand why, we have to look at how this generation learned about sex. With traditional school curricula often lagging behind or heavily restricted, 60% of Gen Z turned to social media as their primary source of sex education. Because this education was decentralized and crowdsourced from creators and therapists online, young adults developed a unique fluency in the psychological language of personal agency. This flowchart illustrates that shift. The old model treated consent as a simple, linear yes or no at the start of an encounter. The modern standard treats it as a continuous feedback loop, an enthusiastic, ongoing negotiation that lasts the entire time. This is a strict majority consensus. 82% of Gen Z respondents say this continuous negotiation is a hard requirement for a positive sexual experience. The mechanical consequence of this new standard is friction. When sex is an ongoing negotiation, casual encounters require a lot more active mental bandwidth. Low-commitment hookups used to be viewed as low stakes. Now, navigating them ethically requires a high degree of emotional intelligence and continuous, deliberate communication. By universally raising the bar for consent, the cultural barrier to entry for casual intimacy has gotten high. For many, it takes too much effort to casually step over. Elevated consent standards don't exist in a vacuum. Gen Z is currently reporting the highest anxiety and stress levels of any generation ever studied. From a biological perspective, severe stress and economic pressure disrupt hormonal balance. They directly suppress libido and reduce romantic motivation. You can see the logistical barriers in this graph, showing 18 to 29-year-olds living with a partner. Due to economic strain and delayed independent living, that number dropped over 10 years, from 42. When you add high-stakes communication to a generation dealing with economic strain and digital isolation, the outcome is a documented exhaustion with low-commitment arrangements. The lower frequency of sex in this generation does not represent a return to repression or a fear of intimacy. Instead, these numbers reflect a trend researchers call opting into intentionality. Young adults are actively rejecting ambiguous, low-effort arrangements. The emotional math of a one-night stand no longer adds up when the baseline requirements for communication and safety are so strictly enforced. The modern dating landscape has become increasingly binary. Young adults are choosing either full, deliberate commitment to a partner, or they are choosing intentional abstinence. The sheer effort required to ethically navigate a casual encounter outweighs the perceived reward for an already burned-out demographic. Gen Z talks about sex because they are highly informed. They are having less of it than their parents did, because their standards for communication, safety, and consent have never been higher.